Hello, hello. It's there, but how come the music is not there? It wasn't for you.
Mustafa Hashim is from Discovery. Huh? He has joined already, okay. Good. He's the only one. Did you send to Xag as well? Okay. To join. He already asked. Speak something. Speak something intelligent. Yeah. So you don't want me to watch the camera, you want me to... Ah, the voice, okay. Yeah. Like who? Well, the GXC, I don't think that many people will connect as of yet, and we're not speaking agronomy, we're speaking EUDR. So I don't think that's very useful. But Kun, you send, yeah? Yeah. And just tell him what it is. Huh? You say it's a presentation by Plutus on EUDR. Hmm?
Lamia, did you send messages before? Oh, okay, so you can hear me clearly. You clearly plugged into it.
Blah, 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 blah. You want me to speak again? What can you say out of there? I can speak very loud. Yeah, everybody can hear. I've had folks here before. I didn't have complaints that somebody didn't understand. The end of the presentation, before we start the questions and answers, if you could just write down one thing that you take away from this meeting, that will help us to see whether we had a little bit of impact or nothing at all. If there's no takeaway, just say nothing. That's how we start moving. So We're talking here about EUDR and its implications. We developed a little agenda, which is basically the implementation, especially the misconceptions, which are still around, the requirements which EUDR wants from you. We'll explain a little bit the traceability, how to implement it. We want to talk about the data warehouse debate, the traceability apps which are out there, EUDR premiums, which is highly important for those of you who are selling coffee, exporting coffee, talking to European operators. Your responsibilities as a company that is going to supply operators in Europe, and then finally the conclusions. So if I start with the implementation, nobody has studied the exact EUDR, the whole regulation. That's hundreds of pages. So even I admit I haven't read everything, but the key takeaways are basically that we need to have, as a country of production in coffee, we need to have traceability. And the traceability starts from the farmer all the way to your factories for the export. For this, we need to have geolocalization. So we have GPS points, which the company Pula, who was appointed by the government and ABI Development to register farmers, that was their duty to register. We as Plutus, we have also registered 35,000 farmers and ongoing. I'll explain that a little bit later. You need to understand what your buyers are asking from you. And finally, what is a real traceability? So the misconceptions. There's too many people who still believe today that once you have a traceability app, once you can access the data warehouse, one day it will be in place. But once you access that, you have traceability. And nothing is further from the truth, because a traceability app is basically a tool, but you have to feed the tool. It's not that traceability app who's going to do the work for you. If you don't know what to put in there, then the traceability app is useless. The data warehouse, that is where all the farmers, we hear 1.3 million, 1.5 million that have been registered, they should be in a central data warehouse where all the exporters can access the data of the farmers. So if you buy coffee and your trader gives you a list of farmers where he bought the coffee from, now you have the names of those farmers, but you don't have his geolocalization, you don't have a GPS point. Yeah, you don't have his unique ID, because according to the Ugandan law, you're not allowed to share the names of these farmers. Yeah, you can give a individual ID, no name, and the geolocalization. That's what you're authorized to give basically to your operators, your buyers in Europe. And also, the whole supply chain is so complex that many people who have been buying mainly from traders who bring the coffee to your warehouse, nice and easy. You offload the coffee, nobody ever bothered to understand where the coffee came from. There's not many exporters who actually know the farmer groups, go in the field. Even the larger companies who say we have so many farmers registered, look at their export performance and look at the number of farmers. How much can those farmers actually supply these large export companies with? It's by far not sufficient. Yeah, you take the top exporters here in Uganda, there are between 35 and 45,000 tons. Now you can do the calculation. If 0.79 kilos per tree is the average production in the country for Robusta, you can figure out how many farmers, how many acres, how many coffee trees you need to fulfill that quota which you have. So the requirements of the EUDR, it starts with your export office. You must have policies. And that is not just a document. These policies, they request you, the EUDR requests the exporters, not only to have the policies, but to ensure on a regular basis that what you have black and white somewhere in a cupboard or in a file, that you're actually using those guidelines for yourself and to figure out in the field whether your policies are compliant, whether your value chain, your supply chain is actually complying with the policies. So some of you know that Plutus is developing these policies for our clients. So how do we do that? We make a gap analysis of what you already have and what you don't have compared to that. So we develop the policies, but we don't want these policies just to be catching dust in your cupboard. You need to understand what is in there, and you also need to understand what you as an exporter who wants to be compliant with EUDR has to do in case there is an audit and somebody walks into your office and says, okay, this anti-bribery thing, what are you doing? How are you implementing it? Child labor, forced labor, how are you checking? None of you is going in the field and spending weeks to figure out if your cooperatives are actually not, if their members are actually not having forced labor or child labor. This needs to be put in place. And Plutus is doing that. We take away that burden from coffee exporters, whereby we say, okay, at a fee, we will do all the audits for you based on your policies and based on the areas where you buy coffee from. You may have received questionnaires from different buyers with whom you work already. They send you this questionnaire. And why are they sending you a questionnaire? They're sending this because the ones who can be fined by EUDR, basically the coffee roasters in Europe, yeah, they have a big factory. They're not going to walk away. Yeah, they are there, so they have to be compliant. Now, what do? They just want to have their responsibility passed on to the operator. Operator being the first one who brings the coffee into the European Union. So they have covered their back by asking these operators to fill in questionnaires. So logically, what does the operator do? He sends a questionnaire to you guys and says, fill it in, sign it. So now he's trying to put the blame on you in case something happens. So it's a whole string from the roaster down to the operator, down to you as exporters. And what is important to understand is that that regulation is only valid in Europe. Nobody can come here in Uganda and say, you guys, what you shared with us is not right, is not correct. They can do that, but they can't fine you. Yeah, you can say, hey, come and get me, I'm in Uganda, but they have no legal on you. So all you risk as an exporter, if you have a major problem in what you declared, you will be blacklisted. So that's the worst that can happen, which is bad enough, but that is all that can happen. EUDR, the authorities in Europe have no say over what you do and how you do it. But you are the ones who want to comply and give them what is required. So that is basically why these questionnaires are directed to you. And you will see that it's not just a question of answering the questionnaires, you have to sign them. Yeah, now they say, hey, you see, you signed our questionnaire and you said this, this, and this, and this. So be very much aware of what is in that questionnaire and to the best of your knowledge, answer them properly. We are helping, as Plutus, we're helping exporters to fill in those questionnaires because we have helped them in structuring their export company, in structuring their policies and everything. So we are very much aware of what you can answer in those questionnaires. What is also a requirement is a due diligence statement. That's not up to you exporters. You exporters just have to give what we call a traceability report, whereby you list the farmers who have supplied the coffee which you are loading in that container, which creates other problems, which I will come to a little bit later. But the due diligence is the obligation of the first importer in Europe to fill that in with customs. What it means is that they have to check the list of farmers which you have as an exporter. So they are going to check it with all these companies who compare the polygon mapping and the GPS points. They're going to compare that with companies who give them the satellite imagery and who will automatically say, that farmer is at risk, those are good. We've done that in numerous occasions. And all the lists we send, we wait for the response from the buyer before the coffee is even loaded. We wait for his response. He said, the list of farmers you gave to us with their localization, they're good to go. They have been vetted, they have been validated. These farmers can supply coffee to us, meaning that's the coffee which is going to be in the containers. The due diligence is not your obligation. That is the operator in Europe who has to carry out the due diligence, and he can do that online with the customs and declare that he has checked all the farmers, all the data which you have submitted to them. So this requires, even before you load, that lists of farmers are being sent to them so that they can do their homework, make due diligence. And then later on, when you come with a traceability report, when you have loaded the coffee, now they're going to check if the farmers which are in that report for that particular container, whether they were on the list which they have cleared, for which they have given green light. That's basically how it happens. So it is not just saying, hey, due diligence is not our responsibility, it's yours. But they can only do it if they get input from you. So the traceability report, it describes a consignment. It gives a contract number. It may even give a container number, all that, how much coffee is in there, which grade is in there. And it is up to the exporter to attach a list which says these farmers delivered that coffee out of which I processed this container. So this creates a whole bunch of other problems, which is what we call the batching. If you buy FAQ, if you get hundreds of tons of coffee into your warehouse, how are you going to separate that? How can you say that we produced out of these hundreds of tons of FAQ, so many screen 15, so many 18, so many 12, this is dust and garbage, and that is black beans and BHP. So you need to be able to track that as well. All of you have outturn reports. Yeah? They are now linked to your supplies. So what is that traceability? Traceability is when you can prove that your coffee, which was collected from the farm gate by a Bora Bora collector, later on by a warehouse collector or farmer organizations, primary processing factories, agents, traders, up to your factory. Over my 15 years in Uganda, I've not seen many exporters who actually bothered to know from which farmer this coffee came. They work with this trader already for 20 years, and I trust him. He gets pre-financed, he brings me the coffee. Even the trader doesn't know where his coffee comes from. So there's over 1,000 middlemen in Uganda. And it's not only a question of mapping your supply chain. We have started to do this with Plutus for a select few customers, whereby we do the reverse engineering. We start with the traders with whom that export company works. Because the export company can say, hey, I have those 10 guys, I've been working with them for so many years, and there's trust, and we do pre-finance, and he finances a little bit, but that's all what we know. So we take those lists of traders with whom you are used to work, and we have a questionnaire for them. We start to talk to them. Where do you get your coffee from? With whom do you work? Which cooperative? Which primary processing factory? Has been extremely difficult to obtain this information from them because everybody in the Ugandan supply chain is so secretive. That's my farmers. I'm not going to share that. But ultimately, we managed to do that for 4 or 5 exporters. And based on that information, to do the mapping further, we go to cooperatives, we go to the primary processing factories. And all the whilst we're doing that and ending up ultimately with farmers, there's two key elements which we have to train everybody in that supply chain. There's one, the farmer must insist that when he sells his coffee, he gets a receipt. The first link in this supply chain who issues that receipt, he uses the copy of those receipts to make his list of the coffee he has cumulatively put together and passes it on to an aggregator. The aggregator gets this list from different sources and makes one combined list, which he passes on to the primary processing factory, from where your traders are probably buying the FAQ. And now he has to take all these lists, which come out of the primary processing factory, to supply it to you, the buyer. So it means one, the farmer needs to insist upon receiving a receipt, and two, you exporters, you must insist that when your trader comes with coffee, that he supplies you with a list of farmers. If these two conditions are not fulfilled, then you will never know where your coffee comes from. And you, as the exporter who is now signing papers with operators in Europe, you have some sort of a responsibility, even though nobody can come and catch you. But if you don't have a list of farmers, where's your traceability? There is none. Yeah, you have coffee in the container like you've done for 20, 30 years, but you don't know which farmer has brought that coffee. So again, I repeat, a farmer must insist to get a receipt from whoever collects the coffee from him. And you, as exporters, you have to insist that you get a list of farmers who are said to have supplied coffee, which now you're offloading in your factory. That is really key. And because there is so many intermediaries, like I said, over 1,000 of these middlemen, it's going to be extremely difficult. So everybody who today speaks about the traceability, very few have a true traceability, because nobody can provide all this documentation. Cooperatives, they can. Some of them are already organized and structured. But you, as exporters, if you haven't worked with many, many cooperatives, if you don't have that interaction with them for the past years, then basically you don't know. And it is really key that you insist upon receiving from your suppliers a list of farmers where he remits it to you. So now you are covered. You say, yeah, I received that list. Those were the farmers. These farmers, we can verify for the due diligence that there's no deforestation going on in their area or in their particular farm. So that list is basically your security, that now you're starting to have traceability. That's why it's important to insist. Not like, deliver me this coffee and I'll put it aside because it's going to go to Sudan or it's going to go to the Middle East or to China or whatever. Because if you do like this, you need to have this segregation in your warehouse where you know that part I have lists and that part I don't. So you know that coffee, don't ever try to mix it into a container which goes to Europe, because you won't be able to actually prove the traceability. You send it to China, nobody cares so far. So that brings me to the data warehouse, and that's also one of the misconceptions. When in June, July last year, ABI Development came with this idea that they wanted to streamline. Many of you have made proposals to get funding to go and do this work. But then they brushed everything off the table and they said, we're going to make 3 consortia. One is the multinationals, one is the farmer organizations, and the last one is the exporters and traders. So you all have heard, and maybe you're even part of consortium number 3. If somebody here can tell me what consortium number 3 has brought you in terms of getting compliant and in terms of achieving traceability, tell me, because I haven't seen anything. and I see all the communication, all um, the questions and the exchange which is done in those groups. But who has benefited? Maybe the one who was supposed to register the farmers, yeah, being Pula, because they asked all these members in consortium number 3 and in 2, motivate your farmers to be registered. And for us, we have done this as Plutus. When you come in the field and you send somebody from Kampala, the farmers are just going to say, who are you? What are you doing here? Pula at the beginning even had some of their agents arrested, put in jail, because nobody knew what the hell they were doing there. Yeah. So our technique is just to adapt to the local communities. So first of all, we inform the government officials, LC1, LC3, before we move in there. Then all our field-based officers are from that area, which means that he's employed by us, he's paid for every farmer he registers. But when he walks into the village, the reaction of the farmers is going to be, oh, you are the son of this and this and this. They are known in the community. And that is key, basically, to start registering your farmers. But now the data warehouse is supposed to be under, today MyF was going to be UCDA, now UCDA is integrated in MyF. So they, since December 2023, they have been going back and forth in selecting a data warehouse. And as far as I know today, there is no system in place. So the only one who has all these farmers registered is Pula. Pula has the hardware, has the software to manage that. So because the government, who is supposed to run and manage the data warehouse, where you as exporters should be able to connect, because now you have your list of farmers and you want to have their individual ID and their geolocalization, which you need for the traceability report. Do you know on which door you have to knock to get that information? Me, I don't, because I haven't seen anything. So I know that MyF has shortlisted 5 companies to supply them with the hardware and the software to run the database. But they haven't decided yet. They haven't signed any contract yet. They haven't paid anybody. And all of you who have been working with IT, you full well know that once you get a new system, it will take you at least a year or 2 to get familiar with the system and to eliminate flaws in that system which do not correspond to what you actually want. Here in Uganda, it's not in place yet. So even if they sign a contract with one or the other company, how long will it take till it works flawlessly and that you as exporters can connect with an API and whatever traceability system you're using to start extracting this farmer database or this farmer data? I fear it's not going to be ready in time. The only solution that is there today is that Pula says, we have it. Any one of you can connect to our database and you can extract the information. But here's the conflict. Pula was paid by the European communities through ABI development to register those farmers. So to whom does that database belong? To all of you. It was paid for by grants, was paid for by the European Union, so that exporters in Uganda can become compliant. Now, Pula, I think, will say, we have it, but now if you want to connect to my database or to my hardware, to my application and everything, you'll have to pay me. So now with data which they collected thanks to the public funding, they're going to charge you to access the database. So it's something where all of you have to be extremely careful as to the developments which have to happen now. Yeah. So I call it the data warehouse debate. Everybody talks about it, but since December 23 and up till today, we may have farmers registered, but we don't have that data warehouse where each one of you can connect to extract the data about a farmer which appears on your list. So there's traceability apps out there, and they're all okay. They're all good. You have the local company here, which is Asigma, with their app, which is called Simus. They are still continuing to develop because there is things which are missing if you compare it to Farmer Connect, which, by the way, has been sold by Sukafina to this Indian company. You have eProd out of Nairobi. You have Dimitra, who's based worldwide. So there's plenty of service providers who will all try to attract you to use their system. But now, let's be aware. You sign a contract with any one of these service providers, you don't have traceability. You may think, hey, now I have a traceability app, but what are you going to do with it? Like I said earlier, if you don't have the feedback, if you cannot put in that traceability app where your coffee actually came from, then the traceability app is just money spent for nothing. Because if you don't have that data, what are you going to do? You're going to use the traceability app and let it print something with some farmers. You don't even know if you bought from them. So I'm not here to say that this traceability app is better than the other one. Ourselves, we do this supply chain management. We have chosen a traceability app in which there is batch identification. I mentioned this shortly before. When you buy hundreds of tons of FAQ, now you're going to grade. You're going to have 18, 15, 12 off grades. Yeah. So you need to clearly identify what you have taken out of those supplies for your container of 15. And you're left over with all the other bits and pieces, 18, 12, whatever. So it is very important that your traceability app can actually manage for you this batch system. And again, you have to put in that information. I took this coffee, I extracted so and so much. So when you have a batch of FAQ, it has to continue. Out of that FAQ batch, I have so much 18, 15, 12 undergrades. Yeah, so it's you who is filling in the data based on this batching system. To have a real traceability, you actually need to close the circle, which is I buy, I pay. A real traceability is when you can actually prove that those people which are on your list of suppliers have been paid. So this is another complication because you will pay the trader. How do you control that the trader paid the primary processing factory? The cooperative, how do you control that the cooperative paid the farmers? So this all calls for a digitalization of the payment system. And believe me, sooner or later, the European Union is going to figure that one out. Yeah, if I don't have the confirmation through payment that this coffee was actually received from those farmers, then you only have part of your traceability. You cannot really prove that you actually send money through whatever intermediary to the farmers. So some apps, they provide for this, others don't. And yeah, it's all about training the middleman, training everybody who is involved in the supply chain with whom you have never worked before. So that's why the supply chain mapping becomes so important. Not so much for a company called Rubanga or Ndugu, who work with farmers. They are straight at the source. And I even think that one of these exporters here, they have their own primary processing factories where they have lists of registered suppliers. So they're already integrated one step further than the exporter who has just been working with middlemen. And as you can see, is not something which is going to happen overnight. But you as exporters, you need to have the push, the drive, and the will to actually make it happen. And there's a lot of effort that is required. And again, EUDR is asking also for you as an export company to have a traceability manager. Now, the smaller companies, some of them who are following us on the live stream, do they have the staff to appoint just one guy who's sitting there to do the traceability, the sustainability? Of course not. So that's also a service which we provide, and we handle that on behalf of the exporter until the exporter is in a position to actually do that in-house. In the meanwhile, we assist in that. So the traceability apps, there is, of course, the registration module. We have chosen to work with Dimitra because Dimitra is very complete, and it was developed by a group of farmers. The CEO used to be a farmer himself, so he understands what is happening in the field. Their app is really very complete. So we are using Dimitra for our clients, which means we have a roof where we're using Dimitra, but we can have 6, 7 exporters under it for whom we are managing all that, what I have been talking about. And the good thing about Dimitra, it took us more than a year to negotiate with them because everybody wanted to have a yearly fee. They wanted license fees, they wanted this, they wanted that. Dimitra also took us a year to convince them to have a monetization model which suits the exporter. So now they have it. An exporter who is using Dimitra only pays upon export. You export a container, you pay 1 cent per pound on your container. So that's $22 a ton on 20 tons, $440 per container. But now for the exporter, it becomes a cost calculation. It's not I've paid 6 million to this one, I topped up for that, and there's always something which comes out of the wood. Here you know, you're using the system, and every container which you export, which goes through their app, they can see because you're asking for a traceability report. Now they're going to invoice you, but only then. So for you as an exporter, you have your cost calculation, FAQ, running costs, outturn reports and everything. And now you know you have to add 1 cent per pound on your sales price to be able to pay for the utilization of the Dimitra app, which I think is the best model basically, because you don't want to pay in advance millions of shillings and you don't know how much you're going to use out of it. They have crop management. So also in that app, what you can do is when you register your farmers, you can have a projection of what is his production capacity. Because that's the next thing that the European Union is going to discover, is that suddenly they have farmers who are producing 10 times more than what their farm can produce. So you need to have a system whereby you enter the projected harvest of this farmer. And you have to make sure that whenever that farmer is being used, or that you got the information from your middleman that I bought from that farmer, and that you see through this traceability app, hey, this guy had a capacity of producing 1,000 kilos. I'm already at 3,000 kilos. So now you know that there's something wrong. Yeah, that it is not accurate information. So that is what this app does. It does the whole inventory management for you and the batching, which I was talking about. So if you split Kiboko, FAQ into graded coffees, it manages your stock. Then they have this online marketplace whereby they do it in different countries, in Ethiopia, in Kenya. By the way, they are the data warehouse for the whole Kenyan coffee market. They have the same in Indonesia for other products as well. So they have this online marketplace whereby they are in communication with the authority of the country. So here for us, it would be MyF, all the information. And inside of the app, you should be able to access the latest news which comes out regarding the coffee industry. So that is a little bit market intelligence. It also makes your traceability reports. When you know which farmers Yeah, you enter it in the system, comes this list. But the nice feature about their system is that you have 1,000 farmers, and you know that some of them are going to be in the future traceability report. They will verify for you, yeah, if there is a risk of deforestation. So they will take all the data of your farmer list and they will vet it. They will validate. They say it's okay, it's good to go. We have not found any farmer who has been chopping off trees, forest, because just a tree, that's not a forest. But the system does that for you, which means that when you send a list to the operator in Europe who needs to make his due diligence statement, you already know that they're not going to find anything different than what this Dimitra app has told you. They have already vetted the list of your farmers in that system. It also has a module which can do logistics coordination. They have carbon emission tracking, and inside of Plutus, we have a team who's working on the carbon footprint and studying what are the mitigation measures that can be taken to reduce the carbon emission, which is not something like today you decide, tomorrow you have. This is something which takes years to build it up. And ultimately, it results in what they call the CRU. The CRU is the carbon retention unit. And there's trading platforms around the world where you can sell those CRUs on condition that it has been verified that you're actually retrieving carbon from your supply chain. There is a module in Dimitra on which we are working also with them to find out. They also have another module which is soil analysis. And soil analysis, within Plutus, we have mobile scanners. So we can go in the field, take a sample from farmer group, has to be fresh samples, and within a few minutes, we can determine the 7 main criteria that are supposed to be in the soil to have a healthy soil. It will also show you what is missing and what do you have to do to improve your soil health. And that's the basis of any agronomic program to improve the livelihoods of the farmers, but also the production and to make the coffee trees healthy. So there is a module within Dimitra who does that. We are just taking sample analysis with our mobile scanner. If you say, hey, there's this farmer group, they have so many acres of land, we will tell you how many samples you're supposed to take. Yeah, and then we send somebody on the spot. And within minutes, we get a report which is generated by that system, which will immediately tell you what your soil is lacking and what you have to do to improve it. So now all that is within Dimitra. So an important point for all of you who export is the premiums you can ask. So as an exporter, you say, okay, that's included EUDR. Have you ever gone through your actual cost of being EUDR compliant? Because that's not just now upfront. And Plutus has been helping several exporters to become compliant. We had different phases. We did the export company structure with the policies. We did what was the number 2? Oh, the farmer registration, which we did 35,000 farmers, and then the number 3 is now the supply chain mapping. So we have done all that, but our clients are paying us to do that. That's a cost to you. So how are you going to calculate your cost? Premium you have to ask for. And I've been repeating this to many exporters here in Uganda. When you offer coffee today, please say, that's my price, non-EUDR. You want EUDR, it's going to cost you so much more. But separate it, because if you send out one price, your buyer is going to confirm the business, and then he says, oh, by the way, I need EUDR traceability report. And now all of a sudden you realize it's going to go to Europe, for which you have spent money to be compliant. So you need to calculate all this. And it is not just what you have spent up till today, it's what you're going to spend to remain EUDR compliant, which includes all the internal audits you have to make. You have to verify that your policies are put in place. Larger companies are supposed to have internal committees who discuss the policy, who discuss the implementation of the policy. And all this costs money, because whilst your team is discussing about a policy to be implemented, he's not doing his normal work. Cost you. Because he was supposed to do something else, which brings in money, right? Now here, he's just trying to make sure that your policies are actually really implemented. That's all costs. And now comes the farmer registration. I don't know who has thought about this, but you register. Now we have 1.3 million farmers registered for the central data warehouse in Uganda. What about next year? This farmer dies. The neighbor buys his plot. That one gets married. He splits the stuff between his in-laws and himself. It is moving constantly. So every year you are going to spend money to make sure that you have the right information. So that must be built in your premium. So let me give you an example. Intimex is the largest coffee exporter from Vietnam. They do close to 40% of all Vietnamese coffee exports. These guys are charging $200 per ton premium for EUDR. And because they're so big, the buyers, they're not discussing. They pay for that, right? So now here in Uganda, what has been happening? Most of the people were caught short, would send an offer. His buyers say, okay, but that's EUDR. So now you're stuck. You sold coffee. You didn't specify that it is non-EUDR or EUDR. So always mention that and figure out what should be your premium. There is a large multinational here in Uganda. He's charging anywhere between $80 and $100. So there is not one single European buyer who today will buy coffee for Europe, who is not requesting documentation. This started back in May. From May onwards, they already wanted all the EUDR documentation. Due diligence, traceability report, everything you have. That's what they were requesting. And today we're in September. Take the time for the logistics. They must beat the deadline, which is 31st of December 2025. It's not your deadline, that's their deadline. So each coffee that comes into Europe after that date, 1st of January 2026, must be compliant, the importer must supply the due diligence statement. You guys have to provide him with a traceability report. If you don't do it today, you're not selling to Europe. It's as simple as that. Now figure out what is your cost. Vietnam, the largest exporter who does 40% of the Vietnamese crop, $200. Here, one multinational between $80 and $100. I had discussed with another multinational before all this shebang happened, and he was saying, yeah, we need at least 10 cents. 10 cents, $220. That's what Vietnam is doing. So now you can have the attitude whereby you say, hey, I'm selling coffee. My price is $4,500. Let me get $4,550. It's $50 in my pocket. No, it's not. You have to cover all your costs. Yeah. So you really have to figure out what you're going to charge as a premium. And this is basically finding out what your customer base is willing to pay. But now you know that in Vietnam, it's $200. So why should Uganda sell at $20? There's no reason. You guys also have costs. And you need to set a proper premium. And the way you're going to achieve this in your sales is by showing clearly this is non-EUDR and this is EUDR. And you add whatever premium you want to charge. And over my so many years of experience in the coffee industry, I know that buyers who once have paid a premium for something, they will always try to negotiate it down so that they come back to where it was before, so that your premium disappears. And this may well happen also with EUDR, unless all the coffee exporters in Uganda say, no, guys, we have costs and we need to cover those costs. Yeah. You wanted the EUDR, it's in place now. So you're responsible for all the charges, all the costs which we have here in Uganda. So now you're going to pay for it. And, you know, a price war has never benefited anybody. That's why I'm saying stick to your guns. Once you have decided on a premium, find out by yourself what your buyers are willing to pay. Yeah. I would suggest you start with $50 and see how gradually you can build it up. Because the initial reaction of your buyers is going to be, oh, no, that's too expensive. So then tell him, what about Vietnam? Shows that you have a little bit of information on all that. Yeah, because in other countries, that's how it is happening. And they have absolutely no interest that you get to know this. So then they can get the service, the EUDR compliance from you for something which is not really covering your costs. So there you have to be extremely careful. And the fact that now you're working towards becoming really traceable, it's a tool for added value. Yeah. Before, everybody was trading Robusta, 18, 15, 12. But now you can start trading traceable coffee, and that has a value. And that's where the decisions of all you owners of these companies have to look into. It's not just an upfront cost which you are paying. It is something which in the long run is definitely going to bring you added value. Yeah, because you cannot sell 65% of Ugandan's coffee to the European Union if you're not compliant, if you don't have a real traceability. So that's basically, there is a cost, but there can be a benefit. And ultimately, your mindset must be, it's those buyers who want to import into Europe who have to cover my costs. It's not you who's going to pay just to please them. You have to invoice them with the right price. So, you know, as an exporter, you have this responsibility that there is at least a paper trail of where the coffee comes from. This is why I was saying the farmer needs to have a receipt. And then these receipts make lists which go all the way down to you as an exporter, where you are going to get a list where your supplier is saying it comes from these guys. So you have to be sure that everybody is registered. So the farmer registration has been funded by the European Union, and Pula was hired to do that. So that one should be under control. You can always have agreements with cooperatives who have been adamant in getting registered. That's what we are doing now with the Dimitra app. Dimitra is of the opinion that a farmer should not pay for this whole EUDR story. So their app can be used by non-exporting cooperatives just to digitalize. But it would be self-registration so that it doesn't cost anybody. Pula received 11,200 shillings per farmer. So you can imagine if you need 10,000 farmers, that's a pack of money, right? So the self-registration, if you have cooperatives who can actually mobilize their members to self-register on the Dimitra app, which they can have for free because they're not exporting, now that's an added value to you because now you're going to have access to that database. So if you think of cooperatives who could fit that program, then it's great. But also, all the traders, everybody speaks about farmer registration, but the traders, the middlemen, and I just mentioned that there is more than 1,000. Who's registering them? Who has registered the primary processing factories? One exporter has his 5 own hulling stations. So now they have an advantage compared to those who don't have hulling stations. But it's up to the government to make sure that all the hulling stations, primary processing factories in this country are registered. And there should also be a polygon mapping, not because we want to check if they chopped off trees, but that we know in the whole supply chain, where has the coffee been transiting? So under point number 3, the geodata, the due diligence, the traceability report, I've covered that already. So the process which we apply on behalf of our clients towards the buyers in Europe is that we have farmer data, okay? We send these lists of farmer data with the geo coordinates. We send that to our buyer. The buyer checks in whatever app he's using to verify if there has been deforestation or not. So the buyer gives us the green light on that given list which we supplied to him. Based on that, we try to match with the exporter's batches, which he's going to load in a container. We verify the packing list which you issue when you're loading, and then we issue a traceability report based on your packing list, because that is basically the proof of what went into the container. And we have to make sure that we make it match with the farmer data. And then we send it to the buyer. Either we send it to the exporter can send it to the buyer himself, because the traceability reports which Plutus issues for various clients has the logo of your company, has your name, because you sold to the European operator saying that you are hiring Plutus to do this job for you. Okay, so we can send it directly to the client, and we can send it to you, and then you help yourself with the traceability report. So, as a conclusion, my objective was today to make you aware of all the implications this EUDR system has, and especially to take away all these misconceptions. So now you know what is really the situation, and you know on what you have to work. From your side, with whoever you want. We are doing it already since November last year, so we have experience in that. If you need our help, just contact my young wolves. They're all over it. They know exactly what they have to do, right? So you can be 100% sure that if they have to handle your traceability report, you're not going to get any complaints from the buyers unless you delay to supply us with the packing list. Yeah, but we know exactly how we have to do it. We have been doing it for over a year now, and I hope that this short presentation, I don't want to say opened your eyes, but at least pinpointed where you have to be extremely cautious and how you have to move forward. So you all received a piece of paper. What I would like to have on there from each one of you is just to write down one point where you think that now you have learned something which you didn't know before, right? If you learned nothing, then just put a big 0. If you learned something, just tell me what. And then we are open for discussions, because ultimately Plutus is a commercial company. By and large, we do farmer extension services. We do a lot of agricultural extension services to farmer groups, starting from soil health to regenerative agriculture to climate smart agriculture, biochar, you name it. Whatever is out there which can benefit the farmers, we do. In the meanwhile, we have a team of 17 people, which means we have many groups who actually can take on a lot of business. And we are really passionate about what I said before, that the leader or a leading company is the one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. That's what we're here to do. And now it's up to you to decide your own future. Thank you. If there's any questions, the floor is open now for a few questions. Yes, please.
stated that there are different organizations which provide stability in Uganda, not them being Plutus. And also that they are of different registration of farmers with a different organization. What if one organization blacklisted a farmer and another organization has not blacklisted that particular farmer? And when you're exporting, it traces that the farmer has been blacklisted, and on your organization is not a blacklisted farmer.
Yeah, that's a good question, but ultimately it comes down to the whole concept of due diligence, whereby I was mentioning Dimitra. So we are not supplying the app; it's Dimitra, but we are agent. We have an umbrella agreement with them to pass on the access of that app to you exporters. And we handle everything, traceability, whatever you want to have in there. Somebody who's blacklisted because the due diligence check, which either your system made, Dimitra does it, so it can give you already the green light that all your farmers are okay. But what counts is what your buyer or your future buyer says about that list. So if he has said, oh, all these red flag, deforestation risk, don't use them. Now comes somebody else who sells to another client and uses those same farmers. So now it is not your responsibility. You know he has been blacklisted from this side, but now you are putting it into a list of farmers with geo data. And it's up to your buyer to figure out that there are still some farmers who are red flagged. Not up to you. You can use whoever you want, but that's why it is, in my opinion, important that whatever traceability app you choose to take, that app allows you to make your own little due diligence. Like for, I was mentioning before, for Dimitra, we enter a whole list of farmers, 1,000 farmers at one go. Either it gives us everything green, or 2 or 3 which are red. It also tells you that the polygon mapping or the GPS point is not accurate, because we have seen that moving data amongst different systems can shift the GPS point. We had farmers, and we have a data analyst who's supposed to be here. Yeah, he's under the sun there. So we had farmers when we were doing the checking of those registrations. We realized that some farms were in the middle of a lake. And that's not because our field-based officers, they did a poor job. They gave the right data, but the transfer from one system to the other somehow shifted the coordinates. But again, if you have a traceability app which can tell you before you actually make a traceability report, you can confidently move forward if that inbuilt module gives you the green light. But the ultimate responsibility is your buyer. He has to fill in the due diligence and he has to stand behind it.
So, so the buyer will be the one who to decide whether the traceability is valid or not.
Yeah, the buyer.
Even though I provide all supporting proof that I bought from the right source, from the right area, from.
So there's 2 different things here. One is you provide the proof from whom you bought, but the other thing is the geolocalization. Yeah. So what your buyer is going to do, he's going to enter a list of farmers, which is more than what is going to go into that container. Whatever you want to supply him, he goes through that and he will validate. He will say all these geolocalization points are good and they're not in a zone where deforestation has taken place, right? So now it is up to your buyer who uses whatever company system who works with the satellite imagery, because that is the reference, December 2020, what was forest then and what is now not forest anymore. That's deforestation. So you can supply accurate data. You have all the proof. I supplied from these farmers, but beforehand, your system must tell you There's no deforestation risk. Otherwise, when you send that list to your buyer and he will come back, and you have to take it for granted. If he says, I don't want these 10 farmers here because my system shows that they're in the red, then you have to eliminate them from your traceability report.
And on the traceability of quantity, let's say a farmer which is registered by your organization, and according to to your record says that this farmer has, let's say, capacity of 5 tons, and the same farmer has been registered by Dimitri or maybe another application or another thing. What if I buy that particular coffee, I use him, and then another trader, because we all don't go to the village to buy, but because of the shortcuts whereby the brokers or the suppliers might use one name in almost 5 companies in Kampala as an exporter. How would you block that, or how would you control that? Because the farmer capacity is 4 tons,
Yeah.
but in my company he's there, and then another 5 companies is there, the same company. So how?
So as far as I'm aware of, today, nobody from the coffee platform, from the coffee industry, has the capacity to say whether a farmer's limits is so and so much. We do it internally because we also have a department which makes crop estimates. And from those crop estimates, we take an average production for a farmer. Not only that, but we also say if that farmer can produce 4 tons, we know that he's not going to sell everything to you. So we reduce his capacity of selling freely in the market by a given percentage, 20, 30%, because we know he will sell opportunistically to other people who pay a better price at that moment. There's absolutely no loyalty as far as that is concerned. So we enter into our control sheets what is his capacity, and we see the traceability reports which follow to see whether he reaches his maximum capacity or not. But I'm not sure that Maiev has that. I'm not sure that Pula has that. We'll see. And I was participating in a webinar with the Dutch, the lady who works for the Dutch customs, in charge of this whole due diligence story and EUDR. And long story short, in the end, he said, we're not here to punish you. We're here to learn together. We are going to learn at the same time as you learn. Because it is these politicians who have developed this EUDR concept, but now you have to implement it. And right now, within the European Union, I don't think there is people who fully understand the whole supply chain in all these products, because there's 5 or 6 products which are covered by the EUDR. I don't think that anybody at this stage is capable of red flagging too big a production of a farmer compared to what is his capacity. It will come. And that's why I'm saying we probably have 2 years to get our act together and to have all the information, which will correspond also to the learning curve of the European customs and those who are supposed to police the whole thing. So we have time. Nobody knows at this stage. Yes, please. Yes?
Thank you for the in-depth presentation. We definitely learned a lot, and we've been having this ongoing discussion. So I'm interested in having a conversation around the data warehouse debate. Since it's between ABI, Pula, Maif, so it's like it's nowhere. There's no database right now. There's no data warehouse. How does Dimitri plug into that warehouse, or does Dimitri then use your 35,000 farmers who you have registered over the years?
So we as Plutus were using Dimitra as a tool.
Yes.
Traceability app is a tool. It's not your traceability. So we're using that tool with our own database of 35,000 farmers. But at one point in time, it's depleted. And our exporters have to set in place the supply chain mapping so that they are sure that the coffee came from those farmers. But I'm pretty sure that over the next 6 months, 1 year, a lot of traceability reports is just going to be reverse engineering. And after us, we'll see what happens. We just give those farmers, but we don't know if it came from those farmers. And that is not just a question of a small company, a medium company, or a large company. If I calculate the larger companies who export 40, 45,000 tons a year, how many farmers they need to have in their system. Somebody told me one day, yeah, but this guy, they're compliant, they have 60,000 farmers. I said, have you calculated how much 60,000 farmers can supply him with coffee, whereas he's exporting 40,000 tons? So what is the solution? The solution is basically that you're trying to make it work as perfectly as possible, but in the initial stages, nothing is perfect. You're learning. You're improving your supply chain management. You get paper trail, which now you're going to enter into one of these traceability apps. Yeah, that is the basis of your tool. Traceability app is a tool. It's not traceability for you.
Okay. Thank you so much. Are you open to more? So some cooperatives, some farmers, some companies here are working directly with cooperatives, maybe 1,000, 2,500 farmers. Are you open to adding those farmers to your 35,000 so that we can easily back up our supply chain and
Yeah, we're
traceability?
absolutely open to that.
Mm,
However, we as a private company, we cannot spend money on behalf of the farmers to get them registered. That's why I was saying with Dimitra, who says farmer cooperatives or farmer groups who are not exporting can use the system free of charge. I have within Plutus 6 people who have been trained on Dimitra. So we can go to any cooperative on condition that they do self-registration. It shouldn't cost me a penny.
Will
Because
it cost the
well, what does
cooperative?
it cost them? It costs them to go and see the leaders of the cooperative and say, that's my name, that's my plot, let's do some polygon mapping, let's take a GPS point, put it into the system. Now, once it's in the system, which they have self-registered, the cooperative, with the help of its members, now we can submit it to the due diligence control of Dimitra, and it will tell us they're all good to go. But I can bring the traceability app for free on condition that they self-register. And then, of course, it benefits you, the other people who are actually working with those cooperatives,
Yes.
because now we have an independent system whereby we can dig into it whilst we're waiting for the global data warehouse to work.
I get you. I think we shall have a further discussion
Yes.
on how, when you bring the app to us, what exactly is the cost of integrating the cooperatives and that, but that's at a later time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Are you capable of getting questions from those who are watching the live stream? You have them. Okay.
Mr. Hans, this has been a very great presentation. I salute you. And my question is a humble and simple one.
Oh,
My question is a very simple one. If the members can allow me to assume, we do not have the capacity at the moment to produce the traceability reports. Now, how much is Plutus going to charge us?
so we have a rate, I don't know exactly what it is, which we call this phase 3 of EUDR, which is basically your supply chain mapping. And all you have to do is first pay me, and secondly, give me the name of all your traders. And for your company, it would be, hey, we have our own hulling stations. Give me all that data, and we have people who are working on that to ask questions and to make the mapping of your supply chain. So I don't know exactly what is the fees, but we're doing that already for JBear We're doing that for other companies. So we can easily make an offer tomorrow or Friday where we actually dig into what you have, what you know, because you don't know everything. You know your traders who come to the factory and offload the trucks. And we start with them. We have a whole questionnaire of how many questions? 75 questions, which now allow us to zoom in to what is the next phase of that supply chain. And we investigate further. So right now we've been doing a lot from the office by telephone, but now we're going to move into the field. And that has a cost as well, because we need to understand, you need to understand your supply chain. Even though today you have no idea from which farmer you buy, but we can somehow zoom into those farmers. Welcome.
Thank you so much. My name is Fred Wire from Jabba Coffee Limited. Before I proceed, I want to acknowledge the presence of my senior colleague at Jabba Wire family. My senior colleague, Mr. Hamid, is here with us. So just 2-3 issues. One, on the policies. I appreciate Plutus for doing incredible job for us. We have partnered in this. And lately I handle this for Jabba as well, besides my human resource work. And I regularly reach out to Ramya in case of issues. So sometimes I'm a little hard on her when I want urgent results. In terms of production capacity, you did mention in your presentation of scenarios where a farmer can easily sell what he has not produced on the farms. So in such a situation, what happens? Because now the due diligence, the buyer is able to detect that indeed Fred has delivered what he was not in position to produce. So at the end of that day, are there penalties? Are there reversals, or what happens?
No, there's no penalties for you as an exporter. And moreover, the traceability report, even though it gives quantities supplied in batches by various sources,
Yeah.
it doesn't list the maximum capacity of that farmer. And if somebody decides to investigate, hey, that particular farmer, how many traceability reports for the whole of Uganda include him for which volume? You'll find out that very often it's not his blame. It's people using his name to pretend that they exported his coffee. So it's not the farmer's blame. Farmer cannot be held responsible for whatever comes from the central data warehouse into traceability reports or from our data warehouse. We are probably one of the few who try to make a control of what is his capacity and make sure that if an exporter says he was in my list and this and that, we add the volume which that farmer now is said to have used in various traceability reports. This can be from one exporter, the other exporter, the ones which we see. So we can red flag and say, oh, he's exported a bit too much compared to what he can produce. But you know how it goes also with certifications, especially if you take organic certification. Now, if you look into the details as how much organic coffee an organization has sold compared to what was registered as the number of organic farmers, you'll find out that there is a lot of coffee in excess of what that group could actually produce. So right now, I don't think that anybody in Europe and here is capable of actually pinpointing from, hey, there's a problem. But you as an exporter and the farmer cannot be punished for that. Like I said at the beginning, all you risk as an exporter is not that the European Union customs, government or whatever comes after you. They can't. They have no authority over you. But your buyer, the operator in Europe, he can decide to blacklist you. Because, oh no, JBear, they sent me crap. This thing is correct. He can't do anything to you. But it is your interest to supply the best possible information
Okay.
so that you don't get blacklisted.
Sure. Just the second last question is actually the other colleague did hint on it, tapping on into the central data or the MAIF data warehouse, which is being managed by Pula and MAIF and FBI. So we are here to get feedback. So like I'm one of those very, very proactive members, if you may recall from the start. I was so much interested in how in the companies, exporters, especially where I step in to represent Jabba. My interest was to have effective services, and that's how we got into the consortium 3. But like you did present, we have never gotten any feedback and communication that line. But away from that, I don't know when exporters or traders will start to will get a chance to tap into the warehouse, the data warehouse, maybe when the time comes. And then lastly, I would like to know when Dimitra can come on board. I mean, when can a company like Jabba, maybe this is at the business relationship, when we can have these systems in place so that we have our people trained, those who may actually be part of the personnel to manage the whole
We have
process.
6
Thank you.
staff who have been trained on Dimitra. And they are still in communication with the trainers in Dimitra. So now, once they are ready to roll out and we put on a server or a computer at JBear, we put that system, you will not be able to run the show yourself. So that's where Plutus comes in. We will assist you in running the show. We will even access your account on that and guide you and do the stuff for you, right? Until you reach a point where you say, hey, I'm not stupid, I can do it myself. But it's a learning curve, yeah?
On the report which you are going on the report which you're going to be making, which documents as a organization may need to complete your report?
So what we need from the exporter is the packing list. The packing list shows us what went into your container. And now we compare that with the database of farmers, which are there for you to see which ones have supplied through your whole network of intermediaries and traders, which ones are to be used. But everything starts with a packing list. And the other day, we got blasted by a buyer in Europe. He said, why we're not getting anything from Plutus? So just to understand the relation, you as an exporter, you sell to a buyer. In that confirmation, it says, I'm using Plutus to do my traceability. So now they come after us. But we cannot initiate the work if we don't get your packing list. Just yesterday, we received packing lists from 25th of July and 8th of August. Yeah, obviously on the 3rd of September, the buyer in Europe is getting nervous. Why am I not getting anything? Because we couldn't initiate the work because we didn't have the packing list.
Basically, you need only packing list, no other document.
No, from you we need the packing list, but from you also we want to map your supply chain, because we can give names of farmers, etc., but we have to have a certain level of confidence that those are the farmers who supplied you. So this takes time to build up. But that's what we're doing now for 6 clients. We're mapping their supply chain. matching it with the farmers which we have. But ultimately, we cannot register hundreds of thousands of farmers which correspond to where your traders are buying from. That you need to extract from the central data warehouse. And that's where everybody is waiting. When can we access it? What is the access point? Because if you use a Sigma, or you use eProd, or you use Farmer Connect, you need to have an API which can communicate with that central data warehouse. Normally, technically, everything is possible. But you need to connect to that data warehouse because our 35,000 farmers is just a patch on a wound. It doesn't heal the wound. We need to have access to that, to these 1.3, 1.5 million farmers, because the chances are that those farmers who are supplying you, they are in that box. And you need to extract their data.
The farmers unit only names, nothing else.
You as an exporter, you're not allowed to share the names of the farmers. You're allowed to give a unique identification number, which the central data warehouse is supposed to give, which we do for our 35,000 farmers. And you need the geolocalization, polygon mapping or GPS point. And that is all, should all be in the central data warehouse. So you can say, hey, I bought from Ali, go into the data warehouse, Ali, this trade center, this whatever, this village, and you get his data. Now that's the data you're going to use for your traceability report. But previously, you have to be able to prove that you indeed bought from Ali. And that is the supply chain mapping, which is very,
with proof. It is needed.
the list of farmers. So if you buy from a trader,
Code of the farmer.
yeah,
But now the farmer, to which proof between I and the farmer will give you that it is true the farmer gave.
so that is what I was mentioning, that ultimately the perfect situation is that on the one hand, you have mapped your supply chain and you get the paperwork that that farmer supplied to you. But now, to complete the circle, you need to be able to prove that your payment ends up with that farmer. So now you know.
So you said we need to produce you a payment.
No, at this stage, you don't need to. But I'm putting myself in the shoes of the authorities in Europe now. Yeah. If they want to be 100% sure that this list of farmers is not made up, they can say, hey, show me the payments. They don't have authority to do that with you, but they could send an auditor to try and figure it out. Now, if you can prove and you say, here, look at my payments. With the Mitra includes all these modules. So you could. But you know that you paid your trader. How do you know that your trader paid the primary processing factory or that cooperative, and that cooperative paid those farmers? So it's still a long way down the road. It's not going to happen overnight. Real cooperatives who have a lot of members who actually supply the coffee, they would be able to do that. But there's only a few. You have ACPCU, you have Rubanga, you have now Ndugu is working on that. They are in direct contact with super cooperatives, and they could have that data. But exporters / traders, it will take time until you really know what you're doing. Or you know what you're doing, but until you really have the proof of your supply chain.
Yeah, I guess it's my turn. It's afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I came in a bit late. My name is Collins from Sarah Wild Coffee. So I'm a farmer. I get to understand most of us here, exporters and buyers. So I guess I'll have to speak on the side of farmers because I'm representing them. A couple of the things have been already said. He mentioned a very important point in regards to traceability and the readiness of that. And I do agree with him because on the ground, farmers are struggling just to get organic certifications. We do not have, maybe we do, but we don't find the information, a single organization in Uganda that can basically certify organic farmers, okay? And if that's difficult, and that should be the basics, how about the traceability? It means we have to do a lot more get to that. And I think you did answer that it's a process. It's going to take a bit of time, and hopefully we get there. But I think we have to focus as well on the farmer from the grassroots. So the issue is the cooperatives register a bunch of farmers, a lot of them, okay? But they're chasing numbers, right? They want volumes. This is mostly what they're doing. They're chasing numbers. So what happens if they cannot really get the volumes that they want from the farmers they've registered? They end up buying coffee from other farmers, but they never disclose that, which is an issue. So in the end, they're declaring wrong information, basically wrong volumes that they cannot get, which means that a genuine farmer like Sarah Wild Coffee that is growing their coffee organically and going through the entire quality process cannot be well rewarded because his coffee is being contaminated with external coffee whose source they don't really know. And that creates really a lot of doubts when it comes to the farmer level. So I believe that part of the key focus areas with Dimitri is to probably try to go below just traceability and maybe put in place some sort of reward system for farmers and probably put in place things that can enable farmers to be audited. It could be probably coming from their own cost, but I think it's one other area that we need to focus on because this issue makes some of the farmers like us feel like we won't have the spirit of producing good quality coffee, organic coffee, because you don't feel rewarded enough because your coffee in the end is just going to sell within a bunch of really bad coffee
Commercial grade.
out there. Exactly. Which is a big issue and we feel manipulated. So I'm speaking on behalf of the farmers. So I believe that we have to go a little bit beyond just the traceability and focus on the farmer and put some kind of reward systems for the farmer, and the farmer will feel included. Because if a farmer feels rewarded and included in the entire process, then you're going to get high quality coffee on the market out there. I wanted to just pass that in on the behalf of farmers because I do farm 100%. I don't source from anyone else. I have a couple of farmers around me that admire what I do and they want to be a part of us. But we've put very strict measures in place that make them afraid to join us. Because we're running as a private company, we're not supported by government or any other organization. So adding on another farmer is adding another load on what we already have on our side. That's what I wanted to pass. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's an important point, but you knocked on the right door because EUDR is, of course, a pillar of what we're doing, but the core business of Plutus is farmer extension services, which covers everything from soil health, soil analysis, regenerative agriculture, climate smart agriculture, biochar, everything. We also do pre-certification for farmer groups for everything, for organic, for fair trade, for Rainforest Alliance, for 4C. What we do is we take the farmer group, we make a gap analysis, and we train them to reach the standard, and we make a mock exam. If they pass that mock exam, we say, now you're good to go to call in the official people who certify, who cost an arm and a leg. So you don't want to call them in and then you're being rejected. So we prepare for that. But that is only one of the activities we do. Most of our activities are soil health, agri-input calendars. We try to support the farmer groups as much as we can. And we know the issue for organic coffee. There was a group in Eastern which was called United Organic. So one day they couldn't pay, or the exporter who was paying for them to renew their certification couldn't pay. So they asked us to come in to see whether we would pay for them. So we went to study their books. And I saw the number of registered farmers, fully organized, files and everything. And then I said, okay, so how much coffee did you do? It was way more than what the registered farmers could produce. So then they came out of the wood and they said, yeah, but there's the farmers which are further out who are in the process of being certified. my foot. It's just farmers who are not certified bring the volumes, they record them under the farmers who are certified, and they throw it out as certified coffees, which is extremely risky because if somebody in Europe receives organic coffee and he makes some lab tests and he finds out that it is not, so now you have a problem. But this happens all over the place. Even with fair trade, we made a study in Mount Elgin. The big companies who have all this certification, them, the middlemen, the farmers, they send a middleman to go and buy coffee. So they give them a list. Say, here, those are my farmers which are registered under fair trade. The trader goes to that area, but he starts higher up. He buys coffees from people who are nowhere registered in that fair trade certification. Bring the coffee, come to the ones who are registered, keep track of how much each one has delivered, and then when they come to town, before they supply to the large export company, they just ventilate all the coffee they bought, which has nothing to do with fair trade, and they add it on top of those who are. Ultimately, you end up again with a situation where the registered farmers produce too much or deliver too much compared to what they can actually produce. But this is happening all over Uganda in all these certification programs. So the only ones that work properly is the ones who have loyalty of their farmers. And we know that that is extremely difficult because if today you pay them 1,000 shillings, comes the guy, proposes him 1,050 shillings, you're not seeing the coffee. That's the kind of loyalty you have with the farmers. So you constantly have to be on top of it with the best price, offering them service to make sure that you keep your structure together. So we're working with several cooperatives now. When we said we're going to make a meeting like this with lead farmers, with whoever wants to join, they say, no, only the management. There's a reason for that. They don't want their farmers to know what they have access to. And they don't want us to know who are their farmers. So they keep this separation in there that the meetings we can have is only with the leaders who don't want to disclose the farmers who work with them. So it is a big problem, but whatever you mention is the reality on the ground. And we can definitely support in that for the certification to get you ready for the organic, but also all the rest. Also for selecting the right exporter. If you have organic coffee and I have my friends here who say, hey, I need some organic coffee as an exporter, traceable, because it goes together. Then I find a buyer for you with them. They need it, you have it. Now we connect. So there's a lot of these things which we do, and I suggest that. I think Ramya started talking to your organization. She has. Are you allowed to? No, anyways, we can pursue this and figure out exactly what are your needs and how we can address them. But we know the problem. It's nothing new. Welcome.
All right, so for the online audience, we have 2 questions so far. We have a question from Ivan Nuwagira who says, there's a situation where buyers want a specific format of data sets, which eventually affect the farmer's location. How can that be minimized?
So this is what we do within Plutus. We have our data analyst. He goes through all the registered farmers to ensure that the data he has corresponds not to a farm in the lake, but to an actual farm on the roadside. Okay? So that is where we do the verification. But that's only one aspect of this, because I mentioned previously that if you transfer data from your system or from your Excel sheets into the format which your buyer wants, now there's variations. All of a sudden your data miraculously has changed. So now you have to start adjusting again because your buyer is going to come back and say, what are you giving me? Yeah, you say that this is your farm in Uganda, they're in bloody Congo. So that happens with these transfers. We had the case last week where a buyer in Europe, they received our lists of farmers with geolocalization and everything. So they come back to us and they say, no, they asked us to upload under a system. We tried, didn't work. So we told them, here is our list. Help yourself, right? They wanted us to manually give in the 1,000 farmers into their system. I said, sorry, we don't have the resources, we don't have the staff to waste our time in copying what we have in a given format. You handle our format to bring it into your system. That's not our responsibility. We have given them the data they need. Now they wanted us to become their secretary. So I said, no way. Here's the list. End of the story. So what everybody should understand is that you are not the slave of the buyers. You do what you can do, what you supply, you know it is good enough. The systems they have, and they have issues uploading it in their system, not your problem, as long as you have supplied what they wanted. So don't let them tell you, yeah, but now you have to enter it manually. Like how? We have time for that? No, we don't. We have lists. Take our list, do it yourself. Don't be afraid of telling them that you cannot go on and beyond.
All right. We have a second question.
Yes.
From Quality and Container Inspection Limited. It states, do we have enough time until the deadline for this process to be fully completed, given the fact that many stakeholders, especially the farmers, are digitally illiterate and unaware?
Yeah, so again, there are two parts in that question. The first part, will we be ready in time? Simple answer, no. But somehow we'll make it happen. Yeah? Whilst we're working in making everything we provide and everything we supply to make it reality. But we're not ready. Nobody is. And don't forget, we started in June 23. Yeah? Now we're almost at the end of 25. In 2 years, this country has been unable to get the whole coffee industry ready. So some individuals, they're getting there, especially the big companies with a lot of funds. And some of our clients also are slowly getting there. But by and large, no, we will not be ready. And if we want to sell to Europe, we'll have to figure out how we go around the system, right? Supply them something with which they are happy at this stage. And like I said, we will have 2 years until they become clever enough to figure out what is happening on the ground here. And we have to make sure that it corresponds to reality. So that's one question. Now, the other question about most of the farmers are illiterate. I hear this time and time again. The farmers are left alone, etc. The farmers need to do nothing. The farmer just has to make sure that he has been captured, registered by a Pula, by a Plutus, by anybody else. As long as he is in the box somewhere, he becomes traceable. He doesn't need a tablet. He doesn't need a laptop. He doesn't need the Dimitra app or the Asigma app or whatever. No, make sure you're registered. Get an ID. Pula is giving out the individual IDs, which are supposed to match what is going to be in the future data warehouse. That's all. As soon as the farmer is registered, he's compliant, because it is the responsibility of the exporters to trace that farmer and to put it in the system. So the exporter, yes, he has to be literate, IT literate, or have somebody who knows how to go onto the keyboard and to get these reports out of there. But frankly, all a farmer has to do, and this goes for Collins as well, make sure you're part of a movement where you're doing self-registration, that you can use Dimitra or another app, and make sure that you're in that box, and make sure that your coffee is somehow connected to the exporters who are using that system as well. So as long as you can trace from where you got it, and you bulk it, and you give it to an exporter, farmer is covered. He's not excluded. So that's, I didn't know that you were more on the farmer side. Otherwise, I would have included it in here. But it was mainly geared for exporters. But a farmer, he shouldn't stress. Get registered. That's all. Or do self-registration.
Do we have any more questions?
Okay, hi. This is Samir from Ideal. What I don't understand mostly is about the quantities. Let's say you were talking about the production capacities of certain farmers. So let's say I have a list, and obviously that farmer has a unique ID. So how will we know that this farmer still has maybe
Capacity.
some capacity left?
That, in my opinion, would be the responsibility of the managers of the data warehouse. But so far, I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen that they're working towards that goal. We as Plutus, we do that because we make crop estimates. So we take our national average, which we calculate, and we apply that to these farmers based on the data which we have from that farmer when we registered him. So many acres, so many trees. Yeah, the production, we will define what is going to be his production as long as his number of trees is verified and it corresponds to our crop estimates. So we do that control, and we can see if the farmer remains inside of the limits of his production. But I'm not sure that many people have that. We can do it, but it's very tedious. It's a lot of work. You have to make sure that all the traceability reports in which that farmer appears is taken into account to reducing his capacity to deliver. And the problem which we face is that we're not doing everything for that farmer. We have the farmer in our database. He's being used by certain exporters, certain of our clients. So we can see that bit. But is he supplying now here or there? The only one who can see that would be the national database, on condition that they build in this module. I wish they were going to use Dimitra because it's there. So now Maiev could actually enter the data and make a control. And they don't have to do anything. And on top of that, Dimitra, I forgot to say, works with blockchain and artificial intelligence. So you can also call that machine learning. So once you have some data in there, the system is going to learn more and more and more to send more red flags or green lights or whatever. So that is what is included in this Dimitra app. Not sure about the others. We studied CIMAS of Asigma. We have been in talks with eProd. So we know a little bit of what is out there, but we selected these guys because by far they are the most developed, in my opinion. You may have another opinion, that's fine. You have to work with it, not me. But what you're mentioning, impossible at this stage.
So we do have to be like united at some point. Like everyone has to use the same thing at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
So when do you think that could?
So that was the whole idea, and I think they call this now the task force or the coffee platform or whatever. It's the task force. I think they were created in, if I'm not mistaken, in November 2023. The first time they met was in February 2024. Already 4 months gone. And now they're meeting and discussing and taking into consideration everybody's opinion. And that's why everything is so slow. There's people in there who have a lot of experience, who have a lot of good input. But the results so far, sadly, I don't see any progress. Are we going to get progress? All we know is that we need this data warehouse. We definitely need it. There's 1.3 or 1.5 million farmers that have been registered out of the 2 million in Uganda. What is the purpose if you cannot access it? So you as exporters, you have to knock on the door of MAIF. Say, guys, my clients are asking me now traceability reports for coffees which I export now in September. How can I do that if I don't have access to that database? So hurry up, guys. That's your responsibility as exporters. Knock on the door. Now, I know that what is happening most of the time in Uganda is we don't want to start a war. Yeah, we don't want to make waves. Okay, it is what it is, and we just live with it. But you actually should stand up and knock on the door and say, guys, I need to have access. You're preventing me from selling. I can't do that because we are not a coffee exporter, but you guys are. So go and ask them. The more queries they get, the more they will feel the urgency of doing something. Rightio. Yes, please.
Mine is just a remark. I think I've learned a couple of things. I don't know so much on the side of the exports. I didn't give the EUDR much attention, although I know, aware that my coffee directly impacts the exporter out there on the market. So to comply, so I need to take steps and measures to make sure the coffee is of quality, traceable, and all of those details. But I've learned a lot of things just coming to attend this invitation. So I wanted to say thank you.
And at the same time, I want to encourage exporters to make some sort of routine, put it on your routine to always visit some farmers out there to get the feel of what it is that you're dealing with. There's a couple of very serious farmers out there that are basically revolutionizing the industry, the farming of coffee. And we feel very encouraged when people like exporters and consumers make those random visits. That creates a spirit where we want to improve and we know we're not on our own. We have people that are standing with us. So I'm just encouraging us to once in a while make those visits, create the time in a month to say, I'm going to take on one coffee farm and interact with them so you can be able to know what goes on. I know a couple of coffee exporters don't really know what a coffee plantation looks like out there because they're just buying coffee from middlemen. And farmers know that. They know that. So I'm just encouraging that. And if you don't know where to start from, I encourage you to come to Sarah Wild Coffee. Yes, in the foothills of Mountain Elgon. We're doing a good job there. We're not farming coffee the ordinary way, the way the ordinary farmers do. We're trying a lot of things, going into technology, and you will be invited and you have a cup of coffee, definitely. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the compliments and the explanation. In fact, as I mentioned, Plutus is working on crop forecasts, and we also have a study which is to be published in the fourth quarter of this year about post-harvest losses. So we're studying all this. I have 3 permanent agronomists who work for Plutus, and we have 15 resident agronomists who carry out jobs for us in different areas of the country as and when we need some input. So we have basically a network of 18 agronomists to collect and gather all that data. Now, from the supply chain mapping, which we did for some of our clients, we came in touch with all the traders, and we came in touch by extension with coffee cooperatives. So in the next 2 weeks, I have 2 teams who are going mainly through Central. We're not yet at Mount Elgon, but through Central to meet as many coffee cooperatives as possible to explain them what we do, what we can do, also to train them about traceability. So I think the teams have a list of 6 or 7 or 8 things to carry out, which is the questionnaires about post-harvest losses, which is starting to figure out the crop forecast, which is talking about Dimitra, which is talking about all these things. So our teams are constantly in the field. So start preparing your coffee because it may end up in your place as well. Yes, Professor.
Mine is not a question, it's just a request. I'm requesting for two things. Number one, that kindly you share with us today's presentation. And number two, that kindly you advise us of what we can expect to pay in case now I get an order of EU and I may request Plutus to give me a traceability report.
Yeah.
Those are the two requests.
No problem. I think they have taken note. You'll get that probably next week. And I wish to thank our team of technicians, cameramen. They have, if you have noticed, they took 3 angles and they're going to make some editing. So that is not just the boring me standing in front of one camera. So they have been picturing you guys, and I hope the editing will be nice. And that is part of our library, which can be available to each and every one of you so that you can have a look at what we have been, or what I have been talking about, and your question.
Do we have any more questions? Okay.
Then I wish to thank everybody who took the time to come here. And like I said, if you filled in these papers, what is your one main takeaway of this meeting, that can guide us to whether we have been useful or just wasting your time. Thank you so much for coming.
So couldn't make it. I read with my diary.
Yes,
Just yeah.
at least you showed up now.
Yeah, I was in the area. I said, at least let me go and say hello to them.
Show the flag. Yeah,
Oh my
appreciate it.
spot is there.
Yeah.
When you're free, you work together and see how we can. I think I heard a bit of snippets. Couldn't hear the whole thing.
Yeah.
When I was driving, I was
Of
listening.
course. Yeah. No, but you get the edited version of this.
Mr. says, yeah, I'm online. I'm checking. It's good. Things that happen to do.
Yeah. No, I think we covered a lot of things here. We had that was basically the topics covered. Especially misconceptions was very important, I think. So yeah,
That's a big one.
yeah. So I hope I have clarified a few things. And we'll continue engaging everybody and see where we can be of use and help. You're leaving. Say hello to the boss.